Hello, world! Welcome to the show. Today we have a big show. We talk about cost management. And for that, today with me, I have Adams. Hello,
Hey
Adams.
Frank, how's it going? Super happy to be here today.
Yeah, very happy. Our big challenge because sometimes people think cost is boring, but I know we have a lot of demos to show how to manage it. So, what are the topics we're talking about today?
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about a couple different topics for you today, and I brought some of my teammates here as well to have some discussions about some of these things. First we'll be discussing budgets with my teammate Nitin. Nitin, what are you going to be talking about today?
Hi everybody. So today I'm going to talk about budgets, how to create a simple budget and create, alert notification on top of that. So that's going to be very exciting.
I love it.
Awesome. Next I'll actually be going over our cost analysis tool, which is a tool that you can use in the Azure portal to better understand your costs, be able to kind of slice and dice and gain some better understanding on that.
Love it.
Yeah, and then after that, I'll actually also be discussing our exports tool, which is the tool that, so cost analysis, you can go and analyze the cost within the portal. Exports is a great tool to be able to get the granular costs that are used in the portal and actually be able to go analyze them in your own systems. And then finally, we'll be having my teammate Ben discussing Power BI. Ben, do you want to discuss briefly what you'll be talking about?
Hey, everybody. I'll be covering Power BI template app. So it's kind of pre-canned Power BI reports, as well as you can kind of roll your own with a Power BI connector.
Oh, love it. Love it. Awesome. So all along, those three guys will be on the show. If they're not in screen, they will be in the chat. So the chat, depending on where you are watching the show or comments, leave your question, ask question over there, and we'll make sure to bring it to them so they can answer your question live. That's pretty cool, right? And yeah, so already I see a few people in the chat. That's pretty cool. So we'll be monitoring that. At least I will do. I'm pretty sure Adams, you will do it too, right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Excellent. So you know what? I think we should already bring our first guest. So we start with Nitin. You said correct?
Yes, Nitin. He'll be discussing budgets.
Let's do it. So Nitin, can you explain, like, you're part of that team, but what's your day-to-day? What you working on these days?
Sure. So I'm, of course, a part of cost management team and I'm focusing mostly on the budgets and alert portion of it. Day to day, I am looking at, how to improve budgets, what are the different, features we can add to the budget so that we can help our customers, even manage their costs better and track it efficiently.
Wonderful. So you know what? We met a few days ago and we recorded a video together. So let's watch this demo right now.
Sure.
Hey, Nitin. So, like, people are always scared to go over their budget and things like that, the planned money they had for Azure. So I'm sure there's tools to manage all that in the portal. Am I right?
Absolutely, Frank. And let me show you like how you can, set up the budgets, at different scopes. So if you see, if you go to Azure homepage, you go and search for cost management.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go to cost management on your left side nav, like you will see different options. And one of the options under cost management would be budgets. So if you click on this, you would see that, there's a screen for budgets. And right now you'll see like how different budgets have been set up for, one of the scopes. And when I say scope, you can see like how you can set the scope over here. And you click on this, you can, of course, go ahead and change the scope. So right now, the scope that I have selected is a billing account scope. So let me show you how you can create one of the budgets. So you go ahead and you say, okay, I want to create a budget. So you are creating this budget at the scope of billing account. So, of course, like you can add, different filters. So let me show you. So there are various filter options available. So let me select, one of the filters. Let's say I say my service name, and let's see, I want to manage the cost or, track the cost for my virtual machines. So I select this, and if you see like further down, you can see how the cost is. As you can see, this is the filtered cost for your virtual machines. And with this, I'll provide, and you can set different reset periods. So this is what, how, like at what frequency you want to track your budget, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or annually. So for the sake of this demo, let's select, monthly demo. And you have a created date and an expiration date. Let's say instead of 2023, I want to track this all the way to 2022, let's say end of December. And you have a suggestion that, you can set the budget of $101. So, let me set a budget of, let's say, $120. So as you can see, like this is what I have set for, the budget. And I'll go ahead and go to the next screen.
So it's very flexible. We could put whatever amount we want there, or we need.
Absolutely, you can put whatever amount you want. And the next screen, like I'll show you like how you can create alert on this budget. So this is like you're creating. Now, of course, because you're tracking this budget, now you want to get alerted, on a certain threshold. And this is what when you go on the next screen, you can do that. So let's say I want to track alert on the actual. And in this case, if you remember, like I had put an amount for, $120. So I can either say 100%, which is like $120, or I want to get alerted, let's say a little bit sooner. So I would say, the moment I enter 80% of my budget, I want to get alerted. And then you provide, your
I see. So you could have multiple alerts just saying, okay, like at the 50% of your budget has been reached, and like you're just receiving an email. So like there's no surprise. You saw it coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And then you can specify as many email addresses. So it's not just you, maybe like there are other folks.
Yeah, definitely better. It's not just me.
Exactly. Right. So whether it's your billing admin or, other folks from your finance or IT, right, who are managing the budget, they want to get alerted, right? So you can go ahead and, create that. And then as you see, like you can go ahead and create it. It's, creating the budget. And after it's been created, if you remember the first screen that we came to, like it says budget was created, and goes your budget. So now your budget will start tracking your budget, as you spin up your resources within this billing account. And it's not just, alert based just on, on your notification and all. You can also do much more. So I'll show you another, budget. So that was on the billing account. Mm-hmm. Now let me create it on a subscription. So this is where most of the folks, they create their budget on a subscription. So let me quickly show you how you can create a budget on a subscription and on an action group.
So that will be depend on your scenario. If you're managing multiple subscription or like accounts because you're having multiple clients and stuff like that. So we have different way to set up a budget.
Absolutely. So there are different scopes that you can set it up. Maybe like you are, just want to manage at a very high level, at the billing account level. Or maybe you just want to go, you just care about a particular subscription and you want to, create budget at the individual subscription level.
Okay.
So again,
we have like all that granularity when we create our budgets.
Absolutely. And if you see this, again, I'll just use, let's say I'll create an amount for, let's say $100 for this one, for the sake of it. And I'll go ahead. And here is an interesting thing, right? So you created an actual, again, I will say like 100%. And in this case, if you see, you can also create an action group. Action group is basically you just can't get alerted, but you can also create some logic apps, which is outside the scope of this demo, but you can create it on the logic app and action group, wherein like, maybe like you want to have some kind of an automated action if you breach this budget. So instead of just an email, so I have this logic app created, which is of course sending another email, but you can also do much more, with your resources. But
so it's just the beginning then, yeah.
It's just the beginning then, yeah. So I already have one created, so I'll say budget test AG, and in addition to this, triggering that logic app, I can again, send an email, get alerted, and then you create another one over there. And this way, you have like multiple things going at the same time. So it's not just, getting alerted, but you can also get, do multiple action as you reach your threshold of your budget or of your cost.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm sure people will very appreciate it. And now let's see if we have any questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. I love that. That's super cool. I already feel the audience stress going low because now they are not worried. They will have notification. So very happy about that. I was wondering, Nitin, how frequently the budget are evaluated? Is it like every second, all the time? What is it?
Sorry, I'm hearing echo. I believe it's coming from my computer. Let me take care of, I think, one of my browser. All right. So I think your question was how frequently are the budgets evaluated, right, Frank?
Yes.
Okay. So it's evaluated like once every 24 hours. So every 24 hours, the budgets get evaluated. And after the evaluation is done, it figures out, that the budget threshold is met. It just throws out the alert notification and customers get alerted, that your budget threshold has been met.
Okay. Awesome. Well, another question I got, Nitin. So if you wanted to go, let's say you got a ton of different subscriptions or, a very large Azure environment, is there a way to be able to automate the creation of budgets? Looks like we lost him.
So, like, do you know the answer, Adam?
Yes, actually, I do know. So, Budgets actually has an API that you can call in order to be able to automatically create the budgets, and that there's also a template that you can use. The Azure ecosystem has a solution called an ARM template that allows you to basically automate the creation and configuration of those budgets. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Because I remember having to manage many different subscription and like I was creating all those manually. So you mean I could use some PowerShell or Azure CLI to create?
Exactly. You could use that. Cool. You could call the API directly if you wanted as well to configure a budget, or you could go and utilize an ARM template also to do the creation.
Yeah, so ARM template, so infrastructure as code where you define everything you want. So and I'm assuming then also be part of blueprints and everything. So like when you create a new subscription or a new project, you could already have those budgets set. That's pretty cool. So happy to see you again, Nitin. Are you? Everything is good now?
Everything is good. I killed the wrong browser.
Excellent. Oh yeah. Like if it was playing somewhere else. Yes, something that happens.
Yeah. Did I miss anything? Anything that I can answer, Adam or Frank?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. People are saying like they've been reading about ARM template and all those stuff. That's pretty cool. We just learned that we can manage budget using ARM template. I didn't know, and I know ARM, absolutely, but I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
You can use ARM templates. If you have like REST API, you can call it using the REST API. You can create budget automatically. You can update your budget. You can list what are the different budgets and get more information about the budget that you have just created. So you can do that all in an automated fashion, right? So you don't necessarily have to come to the portal to do all that. So
okay,
so you have all that stuff. Yeah,
it's the full APIs now, not just create. That's pretty cool. That's
absolutely
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and now we'll leave you to the chat to continue. And I think right now I will stay with Adams because Adams is doing the next section. We'll be talking cost analytics, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Mister?
Yeah, so I work alongside Nitin as a PM on the Azure Cost Management team. My main space that I'm working in is working on all of the automation tooling and APIs that back all of the cost management experiences. So that includes the cost analysis tool that I'm going to be demoing for you guys live, but also some of the other features as well that we'll be discussing. But yeah, kind of working on making sure that those APIs are kind of up and running and reliable for folks and able to scale as people's environments, get larger and larger in Azure. And they need more, automation capabilities within the Azure Cost Management space.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you want to talk about cost analysis. So let's get started then. So what do you have to show us today?
Yes. So yeah, if you want to throw up my screen here, I'm actually sharing my screen. I've got the Azure portal open, and here's actually a quick view of cost analysis in the portal for a subscription. So you can use cost analysis on a subscription, and you can access it right from the subscription blade. You also can utilize cost analysis, though, if you've got a large organization that's maybe signed a contract with Azure, and you've got a bunch of subscriptions. You can use cost analysis as well for your entire organization to view the costs all up across everything. But this is basically a great tool for you to use if you want to understand where the money is going quickly in the portal itself, and be able to kind of slice and dice those costs, and explore and see where the money is going. So I'll kind of walk through some of the functionality that's available to you within cost analysis, if you are looking to go gain a little bit better understanding of things. So when I first open up the tool for a subscription, for example, it shows you an accumulated cost graph. And my apologies again for the size of this. I've zoomed in the screen a bunch just so that folks can see the text. All good. Yeah, no worries, Frank. But basically, this graph here is an accumulated cost graph that shows you how the cost for the month of November, you can see here, has accumulated over time. And I've actually overlaid a budget that I created on this subscription as well on the graph. So you can actually see on November 5th, I exceeded the budget of $100. So, this might be something, that I could utilize this cost analysis tool to actually go and, figure out what are the most expensive resources that are costing money. And, from there, I could then potentially take action to go reduce the costs. But yeah, Nitin had kind of walked through the budgets demo, to discuss, to have the ability to be able to proactively, manage and react to the spending as it's occurring, right? By getting notifications. This is a great tool that you could potentially use to help you actually understand what you should set your budget to, because it can allow you to really get a good understanding for where the costs are right now. So then you can set the thresholds appropriately. But yeah, so this tool basically at this point, I've got a graph here and where I'm showing the accumulated cost throughout the month of November. So in November, for example, this subscription, it accrued $677 of cost. And I've got this budget overlaid, but there's a ton of different tools available to you here. So for example, you can go and you can filter the costs if you wanted. So I could say, let's say, for example, I only want to see costs for a specific resource group. I could go and I could filter the costs down based off of that specific resource group to see, how much that's spending. Let's say someone in my organization had come to me and they'd said, hey, this team that owns this resource group, I think that they've been spending a lot. Can you do a quick analysis? This would give you the ability to do that.
Yeah, that will be a great way to, for example, if you have different environments, so you have the same project in different environment, and you want to know, okay, I'm having project X running, and the QA part is running. So is it costly, or how much does I spend having that QA environment always up? And then because we deploy in one resource group, that will be the best way to track that specific environment or that specific project. Is it right? Is it what you're saying?
Exactly. And I know I've only got a couple more minutes here, so I just want to just briefly mention some of the additional functionality. So, for example, along with filtering, you can actually group your costs by a similar dimension of it. So, again, when you accrue costs, you've got metadata associated with those costs. And this tool allows you to slice and dice according to that metadata. So that's if you're looking to construct your own view. But we've also got a bunch of kind of pre-baked views that we think would be useful for you, as you're, analyzing the cost. So one of those is the invoice details, for example. So let's say you want to go and you want to see the same view in cost analysis that you've been seeing on your invoice. That would be in the view here for invoice details. So if I throw that up, that shows a quick table that shows you a breakdown of the cost as you would see it on your invoice. So yeah, that's just a quick rundown right now of kind of some of the features. I guess, how much more time do I have on this demo at this point, Frank?
About we can go up to 2 minutes if you want to show us more.
Great. Yeah. So I've kind of discussed some of these pre-built-in views, but let's say, for example, you've got a view here that you've constructed where you wanted to group by resource group, let's say. You also have the ability to, for example, like in this graph here, right? I've got an accumulated cost graph. But in the graph over here, I've actually gone and I've changed that view to be a column graph, and I've grouped by resource group, and I've made it to be at the daily grain throughout November.
That's awesome, yeah.
So this is basically, it's allowing me to see how much each resource group is costing me on every day. So for example, you can see on the 20th, this A-Hub resource group was costing me $16.96. And so this could be a great way for you to see, are certain resources groups increasing in cost a lot throughout the month? Or in this case, it looks like we have a fairly static, day over day cost. So there hasn't been a huge amount of change there. But again, this tool can be super useful to allow you to isolate as things are changing over the month. Maybe somebody spun up a super expensive resource and this resource group spiked in cost. This would be a view, for example, that, might be useful to allow you to isolate something like that and then drill in further if you want, using some of the filtering that we have. But yeah, another thing just to bring up quickly before we wrap up is that, let's say I've created this view and I want to share it with some of my, some people throughout my organization. We have the ability for you to share the actual view that you've created with other folks. And you can even save the view as well if you wanted to come back and look at it at another time. But yeah, that's cost analysis in a kind of quick rundown. And would happy to be, answer any questions folks might have. Yeah.
I love that. And now let's transition to some magic to the Q&A, the live Q&A part. There's one question that immediately popped into my mind when you're saying sharing and we're talking about cost and money and things like that. So is there any permission? Like if I'm sharing that and like by accident, it's sent to way too many people, like anybody can see that or?
Yes. So essentially all of cost management is governed by permissions. And so in order to be able to view cost analysis, you need at least reader permissions, for example, on the subscription. But if you didn't want to give somebody read access to the resources as well, you could give them cost management reader permissions, and that would allow them only to utilize this tool and not to manage the resources as well. But you definitely do need to have the proper permissions to be able to utilize this. And we actually have a bunch of documentation that kind of outlines some of that maybe some of my colleagues can maybe paste into the chat as well, to provide a little bit more information there.
Okay. So it is totally secure to share that because only the people you decide can read it.
Exactly.
Except if you did the bad thing to put everything as co-owner of or admin of the subscription.
Yes, you don't want to put everyone as admin. That's not a best practice, as we would say.
I won't say names, but I remember a few clients who were doing that. But now they know. Excellent. Do we have a question? So we have people from Brazil. We have people from a lot of people around the globe on the show. That's pretty cool. People are saying that it could be dangerous with Azure billing. Well, no, now we know how to manage it. We know to monitor it. And you know what, Adams, I really like that daily granularity, because, when you start a new project, you just launch it, and there's a good chance you probably don't know exactly how much it will cost you. So like having it daily, seeing that, obviously growing, because, hopefully the business is going well, then you can monitor it and see where it's going and things like that. So I like that you could, see it slowly, like not just be waiting the end of the month. That's pretty cool.
Definitely. And yeah, we try to encourage people to use cost management in an iterative fashion, right? So you want to be kind of repeatedly checking in, making sure things are, going according to what to how you expect them to go.
Yeah. So, and there was a long list of things where you could like filter or group and stuff like that. It was like we picked a resource group, but there were like a lot of them. So does it mean I could, for example, I'm just like check how much all my databases across all my stuff is costing?
Exactly. Yeah. So, the way the cost works is there's a rich amount of metadata that's all associated with all of the costs that are, present in that you're billed on. And so all of that metadata is available for you in cost analysis to be able to go and slice and dice. And for example, see all the costs of databases, for example, or maybe you wanted to see all the costs of all of your storage within Azure. All of that is definitely, metadata that you can take advantage of in this tool.
Yeah, I think you mostly answer it, but we had a question here from the chat. Can we get the cost of a storage account? So the answer is yes.
Yes, you can. So you actually, the way you would do that was you would go into the cost analysis tool, and then you could filter down to the specific resource. So as long as, you're in the right subscription where the storage account is, or in a scope that has the storage account present, you can go and you can filter down to that resource and see the cost.
So we have a question, like we have about 30 seconds, but from Drive to Success was asking, what's the platform to use to check the cost and all those things? So like we were in the Azure portal, that in your demo, so azure.com, portal.azure.com.
Yes.
And then, like, do you want to share again your screen and maybe show where we can find it? It's in the same place as the previous demo, but when we arrived...
there's a bunch of entry points to get to cost analysis. So, for example, you can go and you can enter it from the subscription blade. So, for example, I'm on this cost management PM subscription. I could enter it there. I also could search cost management in the search bar. And then there is the cost management and billing blade here. And so that will take me to all of the cost management features that are available to me. And then I could go and, access cost analysis from there. And similarly, I can even access it from the homepage. There's a cost management menu item here as well that is available that you can click on. And that will also take me to an experience where I can go access cost analysis.
Wonderful. And I see another question, but that brings us to the next segment where it's you again.
It's me.
It's you again. A lot of screen time today for you, Adams. I'm happy.
Living the dream.
Hopefully. So the question is about, like, can we save that? Can we download the data? And that's perfect because now we want to talk about export. Am I right?
Yes. Yes. So exports is the next tool that I want to go over with you guys. And so that actually, so we got cost analysis, which is meant for kind of quick analytics in the portal to kind of give you a understanding at a high level of how the costs are going and maybe allow you a little bit of drill down. But exports actually allows you to get a dump of the raw data that's actually used to render these charts. And from there, you can actually ingest it into your own systems and do kind of more complex reporting on top of it.
Okay. So you know what? We already met a few days ago and like we record you showing me all about that. So let's watch this video and we'll come back with more Q&A for you.
Sounds good.
So Adam, we saw many different demos now, and it was kind of a little bit more lightweight. But what if I really want to do my own deep dive style? Is it possible to have the data out and do something?
Yeah, that's a great question, Frank. So the tool that I would actually recommend for that is our exports tool. So this is our recommended most scalable solution for customers that allows them to be able to ingest all of the data, the raw data that's behind all of the costs that you've seen in this cost analysis tool, for example. It allows you to ingest it into your own system, so then you can kind of go light up whatever type of reporting you want, whether that's slicing and dicing the data on your side with the raw data that you have, or if it's, merging it with other non-Azure related costs that you might have within your organization as well. Exports is going to be that solution that we recommend for you. So yeah, this is exports in the Azure portal. So you can access exports under the settings tab when you're within the cost management and billing experience. Exports, basically what it does is it dumps all of the data for a specific scope that you have into an Azure storage account in a CSV file. So for example, here I've got my Contoso billing account, which is where all of the subscriptions within my organization run up to. And so in this particular screen would be where I could configure an export in order to get a dump of all of the costs, and that's the raw data for all of the subscriptions and resources that I have within my Contoso billing account. So basically the way that exports works is you create your export and it sets up a job in the system that will go and on a recurring basis, based off of whatever schedule that you set up, it'll go wake up according to that schedule and dump that file of costs into the storage account that you've configured. So I'll go through really quick, and I'll discuss kind of the configuration experience for an export. So first off, every export has a name, so give that a name. We'll call this Atom Test. And then there's two types of costs that you can utilize within exports. There's actual costs, and so that would be the costs directly as they're reflected on your invoice. And it incorporates both usage and purchases. And then there's also an amortized cost option. And whereas if you're looking,
makes sense. Since you prepaid, then so instead of having like one big month and like 11 flat, then like you could just kind of.
Exactly. It kind of peanut butter spreads it out across the course of the year. Exactly. I love peanut butter on bread. So that's how it works. Then you configure the start date for when you want to have that export start. And then we've got this other option here. This is specifically for larger organizations. If you've got a ton of cost data, this file can actually get extremely large. The grain that it's at is actually you will get a row for each resource that you have that's accruing cost and each meter on that resource. So the grain is actually per meter per resource per day. You will get a line item in that file that gets produced. So if you've got a huge number of resources, this file can actually get extremely large. And so that's where file partitioning is a great solution for you in order to kind of be able to break up what maybe would be a 15 gigabyte file into many smaller files that then has a corresponding manifest where you can see, what are all the files that were in the output that was created. So definitely this is kind of the go-to. We would definitely recommend larger organizations to enable this partitioning setting for scalability purposes. Then from there, you would configure a storage account that you want it to go into, based off of, wherever you want to pick up the data. One other thing I forgot to mention actually is the export type. So this is actually an important thing to discuss. So we've got a bunch of different types here. So you've got a daily export of month-to-date costs, a weekly export of the last 7 days of costs, a monthly export of last month's costs, and then a one-time export that you can configure. So when thinking about setting up, like if you're setting up a data pipeline where, you're looking to repeatedly ingest these charges and kind of have a persisted store on your side that you can use for reporting and whatever other purposes that you need. I would recommend that you think about kind of two different workflows here. There's a workflow to persist the historical data set that is not going to change. So that's the idea being once the invoice has been cut and closed, those charges for the last month are not going to change. And, they're exactly aligned with the invoice. So in order to persist and store that historical data, that would be what you would want to use a monthly export of last month's cost for. So what that does is it wakes up on the 5th of every month, and it will go and it will pull a CSV with the raw data of all of the charges that pertain to your prior month's invoice. And so that's great for invoice reconciliation purposes. And it's also really good for kind of persisting and keeping that historical data set up to date.
Yep.
Then the second export that you would want to configure is the daily export of month-to-date costs. And so the idea of that is to give you sort of the ongoing live feed of the charges that have not yet been locked on your invoice to allow you to kind of see an estimate of the charges, during the current month. And so that's, every day it's going to wake up, it's going to dump a new file for you, and it'll be the most up-to-date charges for the month based off of, the time that job ran. And so, those are the two main scenarios that I definitely would recommend taking a look at. We also, if you, just have a need to get a file, on a one-time basis to do some analysis or something like that, you also can configure a one-time export as well and configure the date range that you want that export to be for. Once you've configured it, it'll appear here in the exports the main blade, and you can actually see, when was the last run, when's the next run, along with some kind of basic configuration options. Now I can kind of actually hop into an example CSV file that's been output. So you can see here that this just gives you an example of some of the data that's output. So you've got information in each record, and as I mentioned, each row will be per meter, per resource, per day will output one row. So for example, if you've got a VM and it's accruing across a networking meter and a compute meter, let's say it's got two meters associated with it, you would see 2 records for every day for that one resource. So for example, over the course of a 30-day month, you would see 60 records for that one resource. That's exports.
I love it. And let's go see the question that the audience have right now.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Time is flying. But we have a question from the chat, mister. So let me read it correctly from Robinson. He's asking, so for example, he's giving a context. So example, I delete a VM server, but I forgot to delete the hard disk, IP and other services around that VM. So how can I detect all those services that are not used?
Yeah, so I believe that actually we have some functionality that allows, I believe the storage team provides some functionality that allows you to detect, I think it's a script that you can run that you can detect unattached hard disks. And so that would be a way that you could do that. I don't believe that that's actually analyzing the cost data, but that is something that where you can go look at the resources themselves and see, is this disk attached to a VM? And then, that would help you understand that. But yeah, in terms of understanding, and forgetting to delete resources, I think that that's definitely something that you want to use exports to be able to understand what are all the resources that are spun up. And I think having the processes in place within your organization to make sure that you're reviewing the costs frequently is a good method to be able to kind of proactively make sure that you don't have waste in that area.
Yeah, of course, tracking all the resources is an everyday job, and it's just there's no magic button for that. But I'm glad that there's solution to help us finding those ghosts. I don't what's the word for that? Child without parents.
Yes.
Orphan.
Yes.
I have a question for you. So when should we use exports versus another usage detail API solution?
Yeah, so exports I would actually recommend to most of our customers because that's the most scalable solution moving forward for usage details. as folks, build their workloads in Azure, some of the usage details files can actually get pretty large. And so that transferring those files over the network can become a problem if you're calling, an API on demand and looking to get gigs worth of data down sometimes. And so that's why exports, where it's able to run on a schedule and it's putting it into storage that you own and you can kind of manage, is going to be a much more scalable solution, especially if you see your organization growing over time. And if it is growing, you can begin to take advantage of some of those scalability tools like file partitioning, for example.
Wonderful. Thank you. And now it's time to move on to our next segment. And this segment is not related to cost analysis, but to AI, because, AI is everywhere these days. And my friend and colleague Jason met Shannon to talk about responsible AI. So let's watch this interview.
Hi, I'm Jason Hand, and today I'm joined by Azure AI Community Lead Sharon Wang. Hi, Sharon. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah. So tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Definitely. So I get the privilege to develop and engage our incredible Azure AI community of developers and data scientists globally. I work with organizations like ODSC, Globally AI, OpenCV, and more to make sure we have great events, content, hackathons, and other engagements to make sure our community is able to interact with each other and have the best content to put towards their work.
Great. Well, we're really excited to have you here. Thank you for being a part of today's show. I understand you've got a big event coming up. You want to share a little bit about that?
Super excited to. So we're introducing an upcoming virtual event from Microsoft Azure called Put Responsible AI into Practice, happening Tuesday, December 7th. Responsible AI is such an important topic right now, and Microsoft is heavily invested in this space. In this particular event, you'll hear from Microsoft AI experts on the state of responsible AI, their top of mind, and how they personally put it into practice in their work. In addition, we are launching 2 new resources for product leaders and practitioners, including data scientists and developers, to build AI solutions responsibly. And last but not least, you'll hear from customers across industries on how their organizations approach and implement responsible AI. After the event, you'll walk away with a clear understanding of responsible AI and the new tools to put into practice.
Wow, sounds like quite a bit that you're going to be having shared throughout that event. What are some different things that you might be able to share with us to I don't know, convince our audience to make some time and be able to join this?
I know this audience would find this conversation really beneficial. It's important now more than ever to know the different considerations of responsible AI while building projects, and it can be challenging to know all of the steps. The resources we offer will help them have a formalized framework and tools to incorporate responsible AI in their product development cycle, and we will have a live Q&A chat with Microsoft experts to answer all of your questions.
Great. Cool. Well, that sounds like a really amazing event. I'm definitely going to have to go register. And in fact, that was my next question is, where do I go register? Where do I go find out more information? Is there some place that we can send some folks?
Yes, go to aka.ms/Azure Responsible AI to register today. You can also find the link in the description. And this event is right across the corner. Right around the corner, I think is the saying. So make sure you sign up with your email, and then you'll get an email in your inbox on the day the event goes live.
Great. Well, Sharon, I thank you so much for joining us today on Hello World and giving us all these great details on this event that's coming up. And we look forward to seeing you again real soon. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
Wonderful. So once more, the link is in the screen. We'll put more detail in the show notes later. It was not yet ready when we went live, but yeah, all the links will be also in the show notes. So now let's move on to our next segment, Adam. And last guest of the day. Who are we bringing?
So last guest of the day is my teammate Ben, and he'll be discussing Power BI.
Hello, sir.
Hey guys.
Hello, everybody. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself and explain what are you working on these days?
Well, I guess to introduce myself, my name is Ben Chai. I'm a program manager, much like Adam and Nitin, on cost management. What I work on day to day, I think one of the things I'm passionate about is really kind of making custom reports, specifically in Power BI, to kind of give deeper insights of your cost data. So
wonderful. So we met a few days ago and we recorded a demo where you show me exactly that. So let's have a look and we'll come back with a live Q&A just after.
I'm so happy now to have you, Ben. We talk about many different opportunities to analyze and get the data, but I'm sure there's a way to visualize the data, and I think that's what you want to talk about.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Thank you, Frank. Definitely. So obviously we have experiences in the portal, and I know you had a segment where we talked about exporting that data, but I also wanted to show you what you can do with that exported data, as well as a couple of options that you have, especially working with Power BI. One of the things we have is Power BI template app. And this template app is available and free to download. A link will be provided. And this is, you can think of this as kind of a jumping off point. This gives you some pre-canned reports that hopefully are helpful, but are really, really meant to get you started in kind of viewing and working with your cost data, especially helpful in taking that cost data and combining it with any other business critical data you have to come up with a holistic picture of your Azure Cost Management. So I'm not going to talk through all the reports here because there are a lot. I just want to call out a couple of the ones that I think are key that might be really helpful and beneficial to you. And once I'm done showing that, I kind of want to show you, again, this is the pre-canned report. I also want to show you that we also have a Power BI connector that's built into the Power BI desktop that you can build your own reports as well. So just diving right in here. The first one is usage by services.
Oh, yeah.
So this gives you kind of a view over the time that you entered, the however many months you've selected, of how much services are costing you in a given period of time. On its own, not super interesting, but what it does do is call out trends. And I think that's key to note, especially here. You can see this line kind of trailing up. If you want to figure out what that is. So suddenly you see costs kind of increasing, and you're not quite sure what it was. It's not necessarily a planned deployment or planned scale out. You could simply just click into the line, and the panel down here will tell you what it is. So this, for some reason, my Azure firewall started costing me more in the month of November. Could be, totally expected, but this is just an area for you to kind of look in and understand where your costs are going.
Yeah.
Same
and
thing.
It's important to say, because in Power BI, if someone is not yet used to that, everything is interactive. So you click at some place and then it apply filters or sort somewhere else. So
yeah, that's
interactive. That's very interesting then. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. The levels of interactivity with Power BI are fantastic. And just like what you said, you can kind of filter and sort based on your selections. I mean, I can choose different things here. Like this one kind of increased in the month of September. If I want to figure out what that is, again, it filtered my table and it's telling me it's disaster recovery for my storage account. So this is one of the key things I wanted to call out. This is really helpful in kind of allowing you to track over time and see where you're trending, especially, and also call out anomalies. So you can figure that out if you see, costs increasing suddenly. That kind of gives you the ability to kind of narrow in to figure out what that is. So this is kind of a popular report that I wanted to call out, and I just want to jump over to the next one. So this is something that we don't really have a good portal experience today. So we try to make up for it in Power BI. We do in the future want to have better coverage of this, and we are making strides there. But what this is if you have hybrid benefits, and what hybrid benefits allows you to do is if you've previously purchased a Windows license, you can reuse for on-prem. You can reuse that license in the cloud for a Windows VM and save additional monies. So this kind of gives you a view of how many VMs are using hybrid benefits. Same thing here. You can kind of see the amount of servers that have hybrid benefits enabled, as well as the cores that are used. And then these two panels here, we give you, I don't want to say a recommendation, but a suggestion. This right here gives you where you're using hybrid benefits where it's less than 8 cores. If you're using hybrid benefits on a VM, it needs to be, I mean, ideally, it's a license equates, you can split a license in half and be 2 8 cores, and it can't go any lower than 8 cores. So if you're using a license on a 1-core VM, again, I just selected this and it filters, it's probably not an optimal use of that license. You probably want to use that on an 8 or more core license. So again, this is where it's potentially underutilizing that license. And this is where you're not using it all, where you can get more money from, more savings from. So if I click over here, this shows me that it's an 8-core VM. This is how many it would go against some hybrid benefits, and it's obviously it's not enabled yet. So this gives you kind of 2 views into if you're using it with less than 8 cores, and if it's greater than 8 cores or greater and you're not using it, it's kind of a contrast compare. So you can maximize your savings benefit with hybrid benefits. Reservation recommendations. So this is a report that we created to kind of give you at scale for your entire enrollment the ability to see reservation recommendations. So it breaks it out if you already have RI versus what you're paying on demand, as well as allows you to drill into the different regions. And again, it filters the table and kind of shows you the SKU and the quantity you can purchase. Again, it's also filterable by 1 and 3 years. So this is really to assist, not only show you where you're using your RI or how much RI you're consuming, but also where you could consume or where you could purchase more RI for additional savings benefit. So this is a shared view. I also got for a single subscription, but I just wanted to call that out.
10 seconds, you want to show, like you want to mention about the connectors?
Oh, good call. Yes. Go into Power BI Desktop and then select Get Data. Once that comes up, choose Azure. And this is what you want. You want the Azure Cost Management connector. This is going to come up and ask you to input some things. Your enrollment number. So that would be your enrollment number that you put in here, as well as a number of months. And then voila, that will connect up and give you some options to pull the data you've seen down in these reports down locally to use in your creation of any sort of Azure Cost Management reporting needs in Power BI.
Wonderful. And we'll sure to include information for people to help them getting started in the show notes. But now it's time for the live questions. Thank you.
That was awesome. I love it. And we have also a tutorial, right? So here's a link for you to get started, the tutorial that guide you to create your first own Power BI custom, like using the connector. So we put there you had one more link, but we'll put that everything in the show note. I remember you had like 2 links, another one more focused about the app running, but we'll put everything in the show note. The show note will be available after the live, a little bit later. So I have a question for you, Ben.
Yeah.
Because there's many different types of subscription. Maybe viewers, you don't know, but there's the MSDN one, there's the AI. So when you have like a business agreement, you have a CSP if you are using a reseller. And those tools, those are they available across all those subscription type, or like is there's limits?
Yeah. So today there are some limitations. The template app itself currently only supports enterprise agreement enrollments. So you have to be an enrollment admin to kind of onboard and utilize that. The connector in the Power BI desktop, if you want to kind of start your own, roll your own, does support both MCA, that's the modern account, as well as enterprise agreements.
Okay. Excellent. That's good to know, because people may decide they want to try it and like they will hit a wall, but the connector should help you to get started. Obviously, if you have permission to have access to that.
Yes, back to the permissions thing. Definitely,
And
you have to have access.
We're glad that permission exists.
Yes.
I got one question for you, Ben. So I discussed exports, briefly previously. When would someone want to use Power BI versus exports?
Great question. I think they're complementary, definitely. Exports gives you a lot of data. So if you're going to pull in many months, or if you have a large Azure consumption, exports would probably be the way to go. If you are only pulling a month or so and you want to use Power BI, I think that's probably a great option as well. But again, I mean, you don't necessarily have to kind of follow what we've laid out. You can definitely take the data from exports and then use it in Power BI. So again, all these are meant as kind of templates to get you started.
Awesome. It depends always that
favorite your business case. Yes.
We have a question from the chat. So from Ayanda, hopefully I didn't kill your name, is asking, is the Azure Cost tool available on the Azure Stack HCI?
That's a great question.
A great question. You're not mandated to know all the answers.
Yeah,
that's a great question.
And again, I'm inferring from this question. So Azure Stack does, I believe, bill through Azure. So if that is the question, if Azure Stack data does show up in there, it should if it comes in through the cost management data.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll validate that, and we'll maybe put like a link to something in the so we'll try. So watch the show notes after the show when it will be available on demand. In the show notes, we'll try to put some documentation for you to get you started. But that's a great question. Great. I love, that's cool. What else do we have?
So, Ben, it looked like there were two different reports that you had, right? There was an RI coverage and an RI utilization. Can you discuss a little bit the difference between the two?
Certainly. So the RI coverage basically shows you where you have RI, where it is, where you're covered, not covered. And it's kind of allows you to evaluate if you need to purchase additional RI or not. The RI coverage kind of gives you a view of if you're.
Oh, you mean RI utilization?
Sorry, did I say yes?
Yeah.
RI utilization. Your RI coverage kind of shows you the utilization percentages of a particular purchase, right? So you want to make sure that you're adequately using your reservation purchase, because if not, you're just effectively losing money. So it's making sure that your reservation there is adequately utilized, and if not, then that allows you to kind of view it and then take action on it to either reduce the amount of reservations you've purchased or exchange it for one that's more heavily used, something like that.
Awesome.
Wonderful. So when you use that connector and you build your own system, you can then connect with whatever data.
Yeah.
So seeing what customer does, I'm assuming they are able to visualize their data in a very, I don't say interactive way, and create dashboard and track a lot. Or what can you give us some example of very interesting things that you saw?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest benefit with using something like Power BI Connector or Power BI in general is you can take both the Azure cost data, so the data that you're pulling from the cloud, and you can also join that on, on-prem data. So if you have, you're tracking your servers on-prem or even other clouds, you can kind of take all of this data and join it together, as well as, your organizational hierarchy, so you can see where your costs are going. So it's a really powerful tool into kind of joining, and aggregating different data sources, as well as giving you a holistic visualization.
Wonderful. It's already time to wrap up, so let's bring Nitin if he's still there. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So
didn't kill the browser.
Thank you all for being on the show. It was very helpful. I hope people will now get started in their journey to monitoring their cost. Coming next on Learn TV, it's the Armchair Architect with my colleague David and resiliency into the cloud. So stay tuned for more. And with that, I will say, see you next time. Bye, everybody. Have a nice day.
Bye.
See you guys.